Normally you would expect to see some more range activity, cool machine gun shooting, but this week was a little different, and so I needed to interrupt our normal flow to talk to you about San Jose, California. Before we go into detail about San Jose though, I need you to share and like and make sure you subscribe to this channel. That really helps us expand our reach, helps us reach other people with our message. And if you like what we do, we really need some feedback. So ask questions, make comments. We like that. You see, last year, the city of San Jose, California, started tinkering with some really weird ideas, things not really debated and certainly not threatened to pass anywhere in the country. San Jose came up with some schemes that were really pretty new. Once we heard and analyzed their proposal, we of course said, see you in court. They're unconstitutional. For a while, the city didn't do anything. They just sat on it. And then last week, in January of 22, they said, okay, well, we're going to pass them, put it on their calendar. And on Tuesday night, they actually passed a series of proposals that they had made last year, and they're pretty wacky. Now, we had our complaint ready to go, knowing what they would pass. Once it was confirmed they passed, we literally filed that evening, very late at night, or early in the morning, I guess. So once we heard that San Jose was going to schedule this, and we knew we'd be filing a lawsuit, we knew we needed to probably do a news conference talking about it. We had to have an actual response. We were going to get inundated from reporters if we just filed the lawsuit and didn't make any comment. So I quickly gathered together 2 other staff members, and we flew out to San Jose immediately. It was the morning after they had passed it, and then it did a news conference on the City Hall steps with staff, with one of the local plaintiffs, and with our attorney, Harmeet Dillon. To clarify, Harmeet Dillon runs a law firm, and she's the lead attorney, but she also has a number of attorneys who work with her, one of whom is the National Association for Gun Rights chairman of the board, Dave Warrington, who's a long-time constitutional and political attorney who knows the lay of the land. He's a Marine as well, so he's a very interesting character and knows the gun issue well. And so we just did this news conference. The nice part was Harmeet Dillon is based in San Francisco. She was right there, so we had her come out to San Jose, did a news conference, quick one, got all the local press, and then that spun off to all the national press. Now you see there, we also have the director of our foundation, the National Foundation for Gun Rights, is Hannah Hill, and she manages and directs that. We also had our vice president, Ryan Pflugar, with us as well. Standing behind me there, you'll also see Mark Sykes is a resident of San Jose and a member of the National Association for Gun Rights. And so when we put out a plea for any San Jose residents who might be interested in signing on as a plaintiff, so we had standing, he signed on. Of course, we were filing it for him and all our members and supporters there in the city of San Jose. Now, what did the San Jose ordinance, which passed, actually do? They ended up splitting it into 2 pieces, but it's essentially 2 things. It requires liability insurance for anyone who owns a gun. Not purchases, not a new gun owner, but anyone who owns a gun in the city of San Jose. The second thing they did was require every gun owner, again, to pay a fee. They didn't call it a tax. It's a tax, but to pay a fee to the city that would then be moved over to an unspecified nonprofit that would work on reducing gun harm. And they called it gun harm prevention. So sophomoric, I can't even express how ridiculous it sounded. They didn't have a fee amount. They didn't have a nonprofit in mind. They didn't specify a nonprofit. And in fact, they said they might actually form a new nonprofit to do just that. Now, the mayor of San Jose was kind of the lead dog on this, and there were other council members who pushed it. And of course, they pushed the debate late into the evening, but there was only one vote against against the whole proposal. And of course, there was some zaniness that was presented. They also heard from a lot of gun owners there in San Jose, and over spelling out all the problems with this. Now, I want to spell out some of the problems directly to you. I'm not sure I have enough time to list them all, but I will spell out the major issues. In our 23-page complaint, we spelled out all these items. It's pretty exhaustive, but honestly, we just couldn't go into depth on everything. It's not only unconstitutional via the federal Constitution, it's unconstitutional the way they did it via California Constitution. It's unconstitutional based on Supreme Court precedent, especially Heller and McDonald cases, and it's against the city charter. So frankly, all of these items combine to make this a pretty ludicrous proposal. If you think about a constitutional right to keep and bear arms, is it really a right if you have to pay a fee and ask government permission before you actually conduct that right? Not really. Here's the weird part about all of it. In San Jose, you're in the state of California, and that state already has pretty draconian gun controls. So now they're going to go a step further and require citizens who just have firearms in their own home. They don't even carry them out publicly. We're not talking about constitutional carry, people concealed carry with a permit or without a permit. We're not talking about people who are open carrying, because none of that's legal in California. We're really talking about people who have guns in their homes. I'm chuckling because it's not really funny, but it is kind of funny. It's like, that's how far these people have gone. And one of the things I said in the news conference, to start the news conference, well, here, let me just play it. I'm here today to ask one simple question. Is there anybody sane in California anymore? That was a really off-the-cuff comment, but honestly, even for the California residents who, like Mr. Sykes and others who I talked to, they had the same attitude, like, we're not sure there's many sane people here anymore. I have a friend from San Francisco, and he said the same thing. He says, it's almost like a George Orwell science fiction novel. Let's talk about California, especially in 2020, 21, and even 22 now. Think about all the riots, the Antifa riots, the homeless problem, just tons of things happening. And they're all happening at a time in which law enforcement is concerned about responding. Law enforcement is quitting or leaving the occupation. And so you add in all those and citizens who are frankly concerned about their own safety. They're concerned that they might call the police and no one will respond. Wrap that all up, and what is the response of the San Jose City Council? Oh yeah, let's come up with new ways to make it difficult for people to possess firearms for self-defense. We're not talking about, again, carrying in public. Of course, I would advocate that, but this is California, where almost nobody has a concealed handgun permit, where almost no one can carry concealed in large numbers. So we're really talking about in their own home. And so you're saying you can't even do it in your own home unless you jump through all those hoops. You should always be skeptical when politicians say, oh, we just want to do this. We just want you to register those guns. Because what do you think is likely to happen later? Once you've told them who has the firearms, of course, that's the precursor to confiscation. Happened in New York City, where they did that in the 70s, said, oh, don't worry about it. We just want you to know who has firearms and what kind of firearms you have and what serial numbers. And then, of course, then they said, no, you can't actually own those there. And we'll confiscate those if we find out you still have them. Well, that's the same thing with California. Same thing they've done with semi-automatic rifles and all the regulations they've had with virtually all guns. In fact, it's so silly that firearms wholesalers actually list what California compliant weapons they have available because it has its own set of requirements. Does it really make anybody safer? We all know it doesn't, even in the slightest. And that's the case we made before this news conference. It's the case I made in front of all those reporters from San Jose, and then later Harmeet Dillon went on Tucker Carlson on Fox News. Now, she's on Fox News frequently. She got on quite easily and got to say a few words about the lawsuit, even though it was truncated for time. Justice Breyer had just announced he's going to retire. She did get in a few digs on our lawsuit.
So San Jose, California is working to disarm the population, but they're not straightforward enough to do it. They're doing it in a passive-aggressive way by passing a law that will require gun owners, legal gun owners, to obtain firearm liability insurance and pay an annual fee. So the National Association for Gun Rights and a gun owner have filed a lawsuit against San Jose.
Of course, one of my favorite points was that criminals are not sitting around waiting to figure out how much they're going to have to pay for a fee to own their guns. They're not sitting around thinking, oh, I better check on my homeowner's insurance policy to make sure it covers this new requirement to possess a firearm. No, of course, the only kind of people who are going to have to do that, and who will actually do that, are people like Mr. Sykes and law-abiding gun owners there. So in other words, you're not really going to reduce violence. How would it possibly make a murderer rethink committing a murder for this little city requirement for insurance? You should stay tuned because, of course, the San Jose ordinance isn't in effect yet. It's going to be this summer. And our hope is this lawsuit will be viewed by a court and the district court will say, that's ridiculous. These are all unconstitutional. Let's throw them out. We're going to do our very best to make that a reality. Our big concern is if it stays and it becomes an actual in effect ordinance that many other anti-gun cities will say, hey, that's a great idea. Let's try that. And it could be coming to a city near you. Yes, right now it's in San Jose, California, the state of fruits and nuts, but it could come to you. And we're going to do our very best to stop it. Now, that's a good look at what my job looks like and what an average week could look like for me. I didn't know I was going to San Jose really until Monday afternoon, maybe even Tuesday morning. As I was walking up to the podium, I was writing down notes on what I was going to say in front of all these TV cameras. You got to be able to think on your feet. You got to be able to be adaptable, and that's kind of what I do for a living. Next week, you'll get part 2 of the MG42 and a lot of shooting, so you don't want to miss that. Until then, please subscribe, like, share, and check out our other videos.